My sister accidentally sent me a video of my parents calling my 3-year son a burden and regretting his existence while I pay their mortgage and bills. So I pretended everything's okay, but when the next payment is due. My name is Karen, and at 37 years old, I had everything figured out. I worked as a senior project manager at Lancaster Investment Group, one of the biggest firms in the city. After 8 years of climbing the corporate ladder, I was finally leading the major accounts, the ones that made the company millions. My hard work paid off. Last year, I finally bought my dream apartment in Westlake Towers. 2 bedrooms with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline that made every late night at the office worth it. 6 months later, I added a Mercedes to my list of achievements. Nothing too flashy, but nice enough to make me smile every time I got behind the wheel. As my financial situation improved, my family started to take notice. "Karen, honey, your father and I are having trouble with the mortgage," my mom said during one of our Sunday dinners. "The payments keep going up, and with his back problems getting worse, I couldn't say no to them. They'd raise me, sacrifice for me, so I took over their mortgage payments and started covering their utility bills too." My younger sister, Melissa, needed help too. She was 29, working as a graphic designer, but barely making enough to cover her bills. "Since I hate to ask," she said during one of our monthly lunch dates, "but Jake and I are struggling with rent. The apartment is perfect for us, but it's more than we can handle right now." So I covered their rent. It was a significant amount each month, but my salary and bonuses made it manageable. My routine was comfortable. Weekdays were for work, weekends for relaxing, or sometimes catching up on projects. Every other Sunday was family dinner at my parents' house in the suburbs where I grew up. Mom would cook her famous pot roast, Dad would talk about neighborhood gossip, and Melissa would show off her latest design projects. It was a good life. Predictable, secure. Then came my trip to Costa Rica. It was supposed to be just 2 weeks of relaxation. I'd been working non-stop on the Sanders merger and needed to disconnect. White sand beaches, tropical drinks, and absolutely no emails. That was the plan. What wasn't in the plan was meeting Michael. He was staying at the same resort, traveling alone like me. We met at the hotel bar my second night there. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, gesturing to the empty stool next to me. He was tall with dark hair starting to gray at the temples, laugh lines around his eyes. Not movie star handsome, but attractive in a comfortable way. "It's all yours," I replied. 1 drink turned into 3. We talked about everything and nothing. Our jobs, he was in architecture. Our hometowns, he was from Seattle. Our favorite books. By the end of the night, we were walking along the beach under the stars. We spent most of the next 2 weeks together, hiking through the rainforest, snorkeling in crystal blue waters, drinking too much wine at dinner, and, yes, spending nights in my room. It wasn't love. We both knew that. It was 2 adults enjoying each other's company with the clear understanding that it ended when our vacations did. We said goodbye with a kiss and went our separate ways. I returned to my regular life, threw myself back into work, and tried not to think too much about those 2 weeks. But 3 weeks after coming home, I started feeling sick in the mornings. At first, I blamed it on stress from work. Then when I missed my period, a different explanation began to take shape in my mind. I bought a pregnancy test on my way home from work one evening. My hands were shaking as I waited for the result in my bathroom. 2 pink lines. I took another test the next morning. Same result. At 37, pregnant from a vacation fling with a man whose last name I didn't even know. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't supposed to happen to someone like me, someone responsible, someone who had her life together. For days, I walked around in a daze going through the motions at work while my mind raced through all the options and scenarios. I could terminate the pregnancy. That would be the practical choice. I could try to find Michael, though I had no idea how, or I could do this on my own. Strangely, as the shock wore off, I found myself warming to the idea of becoming a mother. I had a good job, financial stability, a nice home. I could provide for a child, and while I'd never consciously thought about having children, I realized I didn't want to give up this unexpected chance. By the time the next family dinner rolled around, I had made my decision. I was going to keep the baby. Now I just needed to tell my family. I spent the entire drive to my parents' house rehearsing what I would say. I was 37, financially stable, and perfectly capable of raising a child on my own. Still, my stomach churned with anxiety as I pulled into their driveway. Mom greeted me at the door with a hug. "You're late," she said. "Dinner's almost ready." We settled around the table, passing dishes and making small talk about work and neighborhood gossip. I barely touched my food waiting for the right moment. Finally, as Mom brought out dessert, I took a deep breath. "I have something to tell you all," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. 3 pairs of eyes focused on me. "I'm pregnant, about 7 weeks along." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Dad froze with his coffee cup halfway to his mouth. Melissa's eyes widened. But who's the father? Melissa asked. I explained about Michael, the vacation fling, how we hadn't exchanged contact information. So some random guy knocked you up and disappeared, Melissa said, her tone sharp. He didn't disappear. We both agreed it was just a vacation thing. Karen, Mom said slowly, have you considered your options? I knew what she meant. I've thought about it a lot. I'm keeping the baby. Dad, who had been silent until now, shook his head. Karen, think about what you're saying. You're 37, single with a demanding career. This isn't the time to have a child, especially not one from this situation. Your father's right, Mom chimed in. You should get rid of it before it complicates your life. You're not getting any younger, and pregnancy at your age can be risky. I stared at them shocked. I'd expected questions, concerns, maybe even disappointment, but not this immediate push for termination. What about the father's medical history? Melissa asks. You don't know anything about him. What if the baby is born with problems? What if there's something genetically wrong with it? The baby, I said, emphasizing each word, is going to be fine. You can't know that, Mom argued. Karen, be sensible. This isn't how you planned your life. Plans change, I replied, feeling anger rising. I thought you'd be supportive. That's not fair, Mom said. We're concerned about you. No. You're concerned about yourselves. I stood up, pushing my chair back. I'm having this baby with or without your support. And if you can't accept that, then maybe we need some distance from each other. Don't be dramatic, Dad said. Sit down and let's discuss this rationally. There's nothing to discuss. I've made my decision. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. I thought family was supposed to stick together no matter what. I guess I was wrong. I left without looking back, tears blurring my vision as I drove home. They'd call when they calmed down, I told myself. They'd come around once they had time to process the news. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Mom. Karen, honey. Her voice was contrite. I'm sorry about last night. We were just shocked. You told me to abort my baby. We were concerned. That's all? But you're right. It's your decision. Let's forget about what happened and move forward. I hesitated, then sighed. Okay, Mom. Good. So we'll see you at Sunday dinner next week? Yeah, I'll be there. The following weeks were tough. Morning sickness hit me hard, except it wasn't just in the morning. I was nauseous all day, barely able to keep food down. After 2 weeks of struggling at work, my boss called me into his office. Karen, I'm concerned you're not yourself lately. I hadn't planned to tell anyone at work yet, but the concern in Richard's eyes broke my resolve. I explained my situation. I see, he said. Well, congratulations are in order then, but you need to take care of yourself. Why don't you take some time off? I can't. I have projects to manage, clients depending on me. The projects will be here when you get back. Take unpaid leave if you need to, but get some rest. Eventually, I agreed. With my savings, I could afford a few months without income. Mom and Melissa visited regularly during my leave. They'd bring groceries or homemade soup, but there was always an undercurrent to their concern. Still so sick, Mom would say, fluffing my pillows. If only you'd listen to us, you wouldn't be suffering like this. It'll be worth it, I'd reply. Melissa was more direct. I don't know how you're going to manage alone. Babies are expensive and demanding. I've been saving for years, I reminded her. I've got enough to cover maternity leave and then some. One afternoon, as Mom was fixing tea in my kitchen, she hesitantly brought up finances. Karen, your father and I were wondering about the mortgage payment for next month. Don't worry, I assured her. I've set up automatic transfers. I can still help with the bills. Her relief was palpable. Oh, thank goodness. And Melissa's rent? That too. I told you I prepared for this. She hugged me tightly. You're such a good daughter. As she left that day, I couldn't help wondering if her concern was genuinely for me or for the financial support I provided, but I pushed the thought away. They were family. Of course, they cared about me. My pregnancy dragged on through seasons of discomfort. The morning sickness eventually subsided only to be replaced by backaches, swollen feet, and a constant feeling of exhaustion. But with each ultrasound, each tiny kick, I grew more certain I'd made the right decision. It's a boy, the technician told me during my 20-week scan of son. I was going to have a son. I'd asked Melissa to come with me that day, hoping to build some enthusiasm in at least one family member. She sat beside me watching the screen with an unreadable expression. Isn't it amazing? I asked, pointing to the perfect outline of his profile. She replied, then quickly changed the subject. So have you talked to HR about your maternity leave? How long will you be away from work? The question beneath her question was clear. How long will your income be reduced? I'll take the standard 12 weeks, but I can work remotely for part of it. I adjusted my shirt over my growing belly. Don't worry. I'll still be able to help with your rent. She had the decency to look embarrassed. That's not what I meant, but we both knew it was. As my due date approached, I transformed the second bedroom of my apartment into a nursery. Soft blue walls, a white crib, a rocking chair by the window overlooking the city. I'd sit there sometimes rubbing my belly and talking to my son about the life we'd have together. "It'll be just you and me, buddy," I'd say. "But we'll be okay." My water broke 2 weeks early in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. I called an Uber to the hospital, then texted my family from the back seat, "Baby, come in early," at Memorial Hospital. Mom was the first to arrive, followed by Dad and Melissa a few hours later. They sat in the waiting room while I labored, occasionally sending texts, asking for updates. None of them offered to be in the delivery room with me. After 16 grueling hours, my son entered the world, red-faced and screaming with healthy lungs. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, the nurse announced. "He's perfect." I named him Ethan Michael Mitchell, Michael after his father, though I knew the man would never know he had a son. When my family finally came to see us, their reactions were subdued. Mom held him briefly, commenting that he had my nose. Dad stood at a distance, uncomfortable around the tiny newborn. Melissa took an obligatory picture for Instagram, then complained about the hospital parking fees. They stayed less than 20 minutes before making excuses to leave. As the door closed behind them, I looked down at Ethan's sleeping face and whispered, "We'll show them how amazing you are." The early weeks of motherhood were a blur of sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and moments of pure terror when I wasn't sure if I was doing anything right, but there were also moments of indescribable joy. Ethan's first real smile, the way he grasped my finger with his entire tiny hand, the peaceful weight of him sleeping on my chest. Mom visited occasionally, always with some reason why she couldn't stay long or why she couldn't watch Ethan while I showered or napped. "My arthritis is flaring up," she say. I don't trust myself to hold him properly, or I've got that book club meeting I can't miss." After 6 weeks of this, I finally confronted her. "Mom, I really need some help. I haven't slept more than 3 hours straight since he was born." She looked uncomfortable. "Karen, your father and I are too old to be chasing after a baby. We raised our children already. I'm not asking you to raise him, just to watch him for a couple of hours sometimes. Why don't you hire a babysitter? You can afford it." And there it was, the expectation that I could afford to solve all my problems with money, the same money that was supporting them. I didn't argue. The next day, I called a babysitter agency and arranged for part-time help. When my maternity leave ended, I negotiated a flexible schedule with Richard that allowed me to work from home 2 days a week. On the other days, the babysitter, Maria, would come to watch Ethan. It wasn't ideal, but we made it work. I was exhausted most of the time, juggling conference calls and project deadlines while also trying to be present for every milestone in Ethan's development. But watching him grow was worth every sacrifice. My family settled into a pattern of polite distance. They'd ask about Ethan during our phone calls, but in a perfunctory way. Sunday dinners at their house resumed, but they never seemed to have any toys for Ethan or baby-friendly food. He was tolerated, not welcomed. "He's so active," Mom would complain when Ethan would crawl around their living room. "Can't you keep him in one place? He's a baby, Mom, not a houseplant." The pattern continued as Ethan grew from baby to toddler by his 2nd birthday. I had stopped expecting my family to be involved in his life in any meaningful way, but I kept inviting them to his milestones, kept bringing him to Sunday dinners hoping something would change. When Ethan turned 3, he began to notice the difference in how people treated him. "Gamma mad?" he asked one Sunday after Mom had snapped at him for touching a crystal figurine. "No, sweetheart, Grandma's just worried about her things." But he was perceptive, my boy. He stopped trying to hug my father after being brushed off too many times. He clung to me during family gatherings, shy and uncertain in a way he never was at daycare or around Maria. One day, Melissa showed up at my apartment unannounced. Ethan was playing with blocks in the living room while I was reviewing work documents. "Hey," she said, hugging me briefly. "Got a minute to talk?" "Jake and I have finally set a date." "That's great. When's the big day?" "June. We found the perfect venue, that new event space overlooking the harbor, and I picked out my dress already." "Sounds lovely," I said, genuinely happy for her. "I'm honored to be part of your special day." Melissa cleared her throat. "Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I need your help with the wedding." I nodded, assuming she wanted advice or perhaps for me to handle some organizational details. "Of course. What do you need?" "Well," she hesitated then rushed on. "We've calculated everything. And with the venue, catering, flowers, dress, photographer, it's going to cost about $70,000. I nearly choked on my coffee. $70,000? That's a lot. "It's actually quite reasonable for a proper wedding these days," she said defensively. "Anyway, we were hoping you could help us out. Financially, I mean." I looked at her in disbelief. "Melissa, that's way more than I can afford to give you. I have a child now. I have expenses, savings for his education, my own retirement to think about. Melissa's gaze shifted to Ethan, who was now back at his blocks, and I could have sworn I saw a flash of resentment in her eyes. Fine, she said coldly, standing up. I'll talk to Jake and see what we can figure out. As she headed for the door, she barely acknowledged Ethan's cheerful bye-bye. I watched her go with a growing sense of unease. Something had shifted, and I wasn't sure things would ever be the same between us again. The week after Melissa's visit was unusually quiet. No calls from Mom checking in, no text messages from my sister about the wedding. The silence was strange, but I was too busy with work and Ethan to dwell on it. Then Friday evening, I noticed Melissa had posted on Instagram, "Family dinner tomorrow night. Can't wait." I frowned at my phone. No one had invited me. I texted Mom, "Dinner tomorrow night?" 3 hours later, she replied, "Oh, just a small thing. Didn't think you'd want to bring Ethan out so late." It was a flimsy excuse. Our family dinners were always at 6, well before Ethan's bedtime. I was being deliberately excluded. Okay. I texted back, not wanting to start an argument. Saturday evening, I was giving Ethan his bath when my phone chimed with a new message. It was from Melissa, a video. I assumed it was something cute she wanted to share, so I opened it while Ethan splashed happily in the tub. The video showed my parents' dining room. The camera was shaky, clearly being held by someone who'd had a few drinks. My family sat around the table, wine glasses in hand, faces flushed. "Here's to us," Dad was saying, raising his glass until family, Mom agreed. Speaking of family, Melissa's voice came from behind the camera, slightly slurred. "Have you noticed how different Karen's been since the baby?" My heart sank as I continued watching. "God, yes," Dad grumbled. "Won't spend a dime on anyone but that kid. Remember when she used to be generous?" Mom chimed in. "Now it's all, I have to save for Ethan's college, or Ethan needs new shoes." 30,000, Melissa complained. "That's all she'd give me for my wedding. She used to be so much more helpful before that burden came along. It would have been better if she listened to us in the first place," Mom said, her words making my blood run cold. "If she'd just gotten rid of it when we told her to, everything would be normal." Dad nodded. "That kid ruined everything. She's not even the same person anymore." To life before Ethan, Melissa laughed, raising her glass. The others joined in the toast, laughing. The video ended. I sat frozen, staring at my phone, tears streaming down my face. Ethan splashed water at me, oblivious to my distress. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Melissa. "Jake, you've got to see this. It's hilarious." She'd sent the video to me by mistake. It was meant for her fiancé. I quickly saved the video, a cold anger replacing my initial shock. Then I noticed the video had disappeared from our chat. She deleted it remotely, realizing her error. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Melissa. "Hey, sis," she said too brightly. "Everything good with you and Ethan?" "Fine," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Why do you ask?" "No reason. Just checking in." She paused. "So about that money for the wedding?" "I'll transfer it soon," I said, hiding my disgust. "Don't worry. Great. You're the best. Talk later." She hung up, obviously relieved that I hadn't mentioned the video. Instead of sending the money, I logged into my banking app and made different changes. First, I canceled the automatic transfers to my parents' mortgage account. Then I deleted the recurring payment for their utility bills. Finally, I removed the transfer for Melissa's rent. It took a week for them to notice. My phone rang on a Tuesday night. "Mom," her voice, frantic. "Karen," the bank called. "They said our mortgage payment is late. There must be some mistake with your transfer." "There's no mistake," I replied calmly. "I stopped the payments. I've also canceled the utility payments and Melissa's rent." There was a shocked silence. "Karen, we need that money. We can't afford. That's not my problem anymore." "What's gotten into you?" she demanded. "Is this because we didn't invite you to dinner?" "That was Melissa's idea, not mine. I have to go, Mom. Ethan needs me." I hung up before she could respond. The next day, there was loud knocking at my door. Through the peephole, I could see my parents and Melissa all looking angry. I considered not answering, but decided it was time to face them. I opened the door and they stormed in. "What the hell, Karen?" Melissa shouted. "My landlord called. The rent's late." I remained calm. "I'd like to show you something." I took out my phone, opened the video Melissa had accidentally sent me, and pressed play. Their faces paled as they watched. When it ended, there was a long silence. Melissa spoke first. "You weren't supposed to see that." "Clearly," I replied. "We were just blowing off steam," Mom tried to explain. "We had too much wine. You called my son a burden. You said you wished he'd never been born. You called me greedy for not giving you more money." "You've changed since you had him," Melissa accused. "You used to be so generous, and now everything is about Ethan." "Of course, it is. He's my child. What about us? Mom cried. We're your family too. You've always helped us before. I did it because I thought that's what family does, but now I see I was wrong. Real family supports each other unconditionally. So you're just gonna let us struggle? Dad asked incredulously. You're both healthy enough to work, I pointed out, and Melissa could find a cheaper apartment. You're being cruel, Melissa spat. No, I'm setting boundaries. I won't have Ethan grow up around people who resent his existence. This is about the money, Mom insisted. You're punishing us because we asked for help. I shook my head. This is about respect and love. You've shown neither to my son. Fine, Melissa said, grabbing her purse. Keep your money, but don't expect us to pretend we're one big happy family anymore. Oh, I don't expect anything from you, I replied. Not anymore. They left, slamming the door behind them. Over the next few weeks, they tried to contact me. Calls, messages, even a letter from Mom begging me to reconsider. I blocked their numbers and returned the letter unopened. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that my mother had gotten a part-time job to help with bills. Dad had started driving for a rideshare company. Melissa had moved back in with them. Her wedding postponed indefinitely. Some nights, I wondered if I'd been too harsh, but then I'd look at Ethan sleeping peacefully, innocent and perfect, and know I'd made the right choice. 6 months later, I received a promotion at work. To celebrate, I took Ethan to the park, watching him run and laugh in the sunshine. Just us, buddy, I said as he climbed into my lap for a snack. Just us, he repeated, grinning up at me. Love you, Mommy. Love you too, sweetheart. More than anything. And in that moment, I knew we would be okay. We had each other, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.